we're just reporting on this birding trip. We went to Sri Lanka in January. And so I'd give you a little bit of background about the country, and then we'll see some wildlife, and particularly birds, but we also have monkeys and various other things. So anyway, Sri Lanka is a beautiful tropical country south of India. And it's a big tourist destination. I didn't really realize that, but tourism earns about 20% of their foreign exchange. So wildlife tourism or bird tourism is part of that, but I think a lot bigger is beaches and coral reefs, and food is a big item there for us, and so on. So anyway, where's Sri Lanka located? It's right off the tip of India. And I looked it up. I was surprised to realize that the strait are you muting? The strait between Sri Lanka and India is very shallow. In fact, they say that until the 15th century that at a low tide, people could walk across some sort of limestone shoals. So anyway, that's pretty important because it means that the shipping industry it's always been very important because of trade between Asia and Europe, and Sri Lanka is an important stopping off point. So it was big for the Portuguese, the Dutch East India Company, the British East India Company, and so on like that. One other little item that I found interesting is that an old name for Sri Lanka is Serendip. So that's where our term serendipity comes from. It comes from a Persian folktale. Now it's famous also in Indian folklore from the Ramayana, which is one of the great epics of Indian culture, and it's known for, it's the story of when King Ravana of Lanka kidnapped Rama's wife Sita, and so a battle ensued and so on. So anyway, it's been known for a very long time. You know what?
Everybody can mute themselves, not everybody.
Oh, okay. So if everybody could mute yourself, then we can. Maybe we can. Can you mute everybody?
I cannot. You can probably go to your participants list.
Yeah, I'm sorry we're having this interference here. We got 31 participants. Mute all. Okay. Current will be muted. Okay. Okay. All right. So I think we're back, having muted everybody. And we will go back to Sri Lanka. Okay, so here's a map of the country. It's not a very big country, but it does have 22 million people. That's pretty good size. It's mostly pretty flat, but in the center you can see there's a mountainous area. One of the really interesting places there is Kandy. Audrey and I kind of went there by accident several years ago when our plane was delayed and we had a layover. But we vowed we would get back to Sri Lanka when we got a chance, and this was our chance to go with a Rockjumper birding group. Anyway, here's how we actually got there. Is we spent a few days in Oman, which is an Arabian country on the Persian Gulf, and flew from Muscat to Colombo, nonstop flight, very easy way to get there. Turned out to work really well. Now here's our group. It's a Rockjumpers birding, and you can see this is our bus that we went around in. Quite a small group. There were 6 participants. Here's and we got into Jeeps on occasion when we were in the national parks. You had to go around in these sort of safari type Jeeps, and they, as in Africa, they don't let you get out of the Jeep. So I think overall, considering the number of people who go there, it's a pretty good idea to keep them in their Jeeps for the most part. Now here's our main guide, Peter, and he was just an amazing birder. He claims to have seen over 9,000 different species of birds, and you know, who am I to say he hasn't? You know, it's just an amazing number. There's about 10,000 or 11,000 total species in the world, although that number changes when they divide the species up, so it's somewhat of a moving target. But his goal in life is to see all 10,000 species, and he really is good. He's got great vision, knowledge. He's really good at helping us to see the birds as well. Of course, that's what we hire him for. Now here's our total group. Peter's on the right, and the tall guy on the left is Timo from Finland. And then we have a Canadian couple and the man from Canada, and Audrey and me. So here we are in the tropical jungle of Sri Lanka. And some of the birding was pretty comfortable sitting in the air-conditioned bus, but a lot of it was out in the steamy tropics. And it's a very colorful country. It's culture is similar to Indian culture. I call it India light because India is, you know, pretty intense, pretty hard to take. Sri Lanka is much easier, much more laid back. The food's really good, so there's nothing to dislike there. And these, of course, are these tuk-tuks, which you find all over Asia, sort of like a motorcycle with a little cab on it. And they use these, are really inexpensive, and these guys are lined up waiting for a fare. The average person doesn't have a vehicle, so they hire these guys to take them when they need to go somewhere. Right off the bat, this is in the airport. I was kind of blown away because we got out of the airport. Our guide, Ashoka, I'll introduce you to Ashoka in a minute. He met us at the airport, and as we walked out, here's this oriental rat snake, which is the second largest snake in Sri Lanka after the king cobra. And then it was just slithering around on the grass there. These guys can grow up to 6 feet. Actually, there's a record of one 12 feet, but normally up to about 6. They're non-venomous and they eat rats, so they're very common in the towns and cities because you know, people are happy about it because they help them get rid of the rats. Yeah, just a dragonfly that we saw in the hotel grounds. So right off the bat, you're in really beautiful nature, and lots of flowers still just at the hotel. And here was a lotus that they had growing there in the hotel lobby. These come in a lot of different colors, but this was the one we had there. And so this is really our first birding spot. And this river is called the Kalani River. It's in a town called Kitulgala. And it's famous because the movie The Bridge Over the River Kwai was filmed at this river. So the bridge that they made, they put up and then got bombed and all that stuff. But it was just really lovely, and it was great being there quite early in the morning. It's really just about dawn or just before dawn. And of course, birders have to get out early. I mean, you get up in the dark and you want to be where you're supposed to be at dawn, you know, as the birds start to get up. So a lot of early starts. But here's the scene, and we were waiting for the ferry to take us across, and on the raft you can see the children going to school. So there's villages on the other side, and they get up early too and head for school, and then we caught the ferry back over. It was propelled by one man with a paddle. He back and forth, that's his job, take people across the river. So we're just waiting there on the left for the raft to come in. So out there in the bush over by these villages, Malabar trogons. The trogons, some of you may be familiar with them from the American tropics. There's 46 species in this hemisphere, most famously including the quetzal bird, which is the national bird of Guatemala. It's on their money. It's the name of their money is the quetzal. So trogons are just a wonderful family of birds. They're often hard to see because they pretty much just sit there. And even though they're beautiful and have all these wonderful colors, we've always found them hard to find. Fortunately for us here, of course, our guides not only had keener eyesight than we did, but also telescopes and stuff so that we could really get a good look at them. This is just taken with the telephoto lens, but other people were actually shooting pictures through the telescope, which is a kind of a recent development we haven't really gotten into, but it's a pretty good idea. I was surprised to learn trogons are related to owls. I wouldn't have said that, but apparently so. So also along the trail, this nice spider was guarding its web. This is a rather large spider. It's called the Araneae, is the name of the family of these spiders. And so let's see, where are we? Okay. He was about 3 inches across, and the web went across the trail, so we had to kind of duck around there. Now here's this is a pretty interesting thing. Layard's palm squirrel. They have some very interesting looking squirrels there, but this guy was just carrying on and barking and very upset. And so we were trying to figure out what the heck is he barking at? And it turned out that he was barking at a snake. And I think I can show you where this snake is, because if I go to this view, I can go up here. And this, I believe, is the snake up here that you can see wrapped around the vine. It was hard for us to see it at the time, but I'm glad I got a photo, because you can get, this is the vine, and so I think that's the snake. I couldn't be totally sure about that, but I think so. So let me see if I can get back up to full size here. Okay, so that's Layard's palm squirrel. Now I got a few lizards here. They're pretty good for lizards in that country. This one's just called the common green lizard. Like this is just the regular one. Like, wow, you got this in your garden. And so I thought that was pretty fun. It's in the agama family, also found in India. And here's another one that we found. You can see really good camouflage. I think we had a child with us. It's always good to go in the bush with children because they have excellent eyesight and they're always spotting things. I walked right by it, of course. And here's another just common, garden variety lizard. Let me pull this guy up a little bit because he's pretty fun. A lot of beautiful colors. So they call this the common garden lizard. Let's see. Let me get this in the right size. Here we go. And here's a rhino horned lizard. Look at his little hands, how he grips onto the branch. This is an endemic. I should point out that many of the birds and animals of Sri Lanka are endemic, meaning they're found nowhere else. And this is one of them. And this is just a variation. I couldn't find any reference to what he actually does with this horn. I think it's just to impress the ladies. Apparently the males have these long protuberances on their noses, but I couldn't see a function for that, but maybe there is. And in the drier parts, we found these kangaroo lizards, really quite a special animal. And really, this was just in our hotel in that first day. Water monitor. Now they have these monitors. They're in the same family with the Komodo dragon, Varanus. And so this one's found in India and Southeast Asia. It's pretty widespread. It can get up to 10 feet in length. It can weigh up to 44 pounds. And it's endangered because people hunt it for its leather. And, you know, a lot of these reptiles have this really interesting skin that people like to use for bags and shoes and whatnot. It's the second heaviest lizard after the Komodo dragon. But it doesn't seem to have, we didn't find people afraid of it. They, you know, it was like, oh yeah, there's a lizard, you know, no big deal. And we saw lots of them. I mean, there were a lot of these big monitors around, both the land dwelling one I'll show you in a minute and the water one. So anyway, these things eat fish and carrion and crabs. They said the locals like them because they eat the crabs, and the crabs mess with their fields. I guess they break down their irrigation canals, so they like having them around. Now this one, this is the land-dwelling one, the Bengal monitor lizard. I was surprised to learn that he's not quite as big as the water monitor. He sure looked big to me, and we got very close to him. And we could have, I mean, he was just standing there, and I thought, well, you know, maybe I'll go take a selfie with him. And then I thought, well, maybe I won't. So anyway, I thought better of that idea. But these are in South and Southeast Asia. They're mostly terrestrial. They grow up to about 6 feet, so they're pretty close to the size of that water monitor. And they eat a lot of stuff on the ground, bugs and birds and eggs and stuff that they find on the ground. So again, he was just out there in one of the parks that we went to. So that was pretty fun. Now, I wanted to say a little bit about tea. I'm sure you realize that there's a lot of tea grown in Sri Lanka. And it was brought there by the British. You know, the tea originated in China. And then the British, of course, got addicted, and that's why they started the opium wars and stuff to get the tea out of China. But probably the biggest thing they did with regard to tea was to import it to India, and they grew it in various parts around India in the higher elevations. It doesn't do well in the really low hot elevation. So in Sri Lanka, as in India, it's grown up in the hills, and it's grown very extensively on big tea plantations that continue to be controlled by multinational corporations with British names. But the locals do grow it in small batches too. So it's a big foreign exchange earner. It's not quite as big as tourism, but it's big. So there's a lot of tea around, and fortunately they have coffee too, so you don't have to drink tea. But waterfall there in the highlands, and beautiful parks up there. These were some Buddhist monks on holiday, and so they were fun to see. Now this one, this is called a Sambar deer. It's a big deer, and I put in there with crow service. Now, you're probably familiar in Africa. You've probably seen pictures of birds riding on the backs of the various animals, like on giraffes and wildebeests and whatnot. These they call them oxpeckers, and there's a few different species of oxpeckers. So they clean off the parasites and stuff. But I had never heard of crows doing that, and here I've got a picture of this crow servicing this.
You talk a little louder.
Can I talk louder? I'm talking pretty loud. If you can you turn up your
I'm all the
sound?
way up.
You're all the way up? Okay, I'll try to talk as loud as I can. How's
Thank
that?
you.
So anyway, the crow is cleaning out the parasites from this deer, and we saw several examples of this, and the deer seem to be quite happy about it. So I guess it works. Here we are out in the woods, and some tuk-tuks going by. I think they're used to birders by now, so they don't think it's so weird. Some places, you find these foreigners out there with binoculars, and people are wondering, what the heck are you doing? In fact, I've gotten in trouble with the cops at a couple of places, but no problem here in Sri Lanka. Scops owl, we had quite a few different owls on this trip, and owls are really hard to see in the daytime. And most of them are nocturnal, of course. They're not all nocturnal. But we had a wonderful network of guides. Our local guide, Ashoka, had his guys in every place that we went, and he would call ahead on his cell phone. And so by the time we pulled in, he could drive right to where we could see the birds. It was quite remarkable. And owls in particular require people to go out at night and listen. And so they listened for the owls. And then, sorry about that. Oh dear. Good. Sorry about that. Anyway, they listen for the owls, and then they go back in the very early mornings and see if they can find where they roosted. And often they can. Again, young people with really good eyesight. So this is a relatively small owl. Like I say, there's lots of different species. Here was a even smaller one. It's called the owlet. And now we're down into the lowlands of Sri Lanka on the southeastern side of the island. Pretty wet, as you can see, and this is a terrific area for water birds. And in particular, the ones that we were interested in are these painted storks. And they call them painted because they have this sort of pink tail feathers. And they're, as you can see, they're quite gregarious, quite sociable.
You don't have to worry about the virus.
I'm trying to turn this phone off. Okay, so painted storks. So here's Peter lining up the scope. There were tons of different species around, but for my money, the painted stork was the star of the show.
Oh, look at that.
And so what a nice face, huh? Who wouldn't love a face like that? So here you get a good look at, just what a marvelous animal this is. Beautiful colors. And, he's trying to catch fish, of course. And we thought it was kind of cool to see the manner that how he does it. Now watch this. So you see how he's wiggling his leg there? I'll show that again. Let's see if I can go back and show it again. So watch his wing. He puts his wing around, create a little bit of shade, because often the fish, they seek shade. They try to get under something as for protection. And so he'll kind of shade, and then he'll wiggle his leg around to try to scare him in to his range. So he's got his beak open, and then he wiggles his foot. And in this case, he didn't get anything, but it's a tactic that they use to scare the fish into their grasp. For my money, one of the most beautiful types of birds in the world are the bee eaters. There's a lot of different species of bee eaters. This is the green bee eater. We had a couple, I don't know, 2 or 3 species there in Sri Lanka. I'll show you another one in a minute. But they're, as the name implies, they hawk after insects, particularly bees, but lots of others. And they're good with bees because what they do is they get it with their beak, and then they'll beat on the branch and knock the stinger off, because they know about the stinger, or at least they've learned. And another thing with bee eaters, they're very gregarious. You'll see huge flocks of them. They're colonial nesters. They nest together in groups. They dig burrows into sandy riverbanks, or on the side of road cuts. Sometimes you'll see bee eaters in their communal nesting, which, nesting with others, of course, is a way everybody can kind of warn if there's a predator. But nesting in a riverbank like that, it does make them vulnerable to snakes and rats and other rodents and stuff. So some pros and some cons there, but they're very, very successful. I mean, we've seen thousands of, these, they're, when you see them, and they're just really beautiful flyers. Barbets, another wonderful species, they eat insects and fruits. This is the yellow-fronted barbet. There were some others. We had coppersmith barbet and some other ones. They're sort of stocky birds with big bills and often beautiful coloration. So this was quite a good guy. And this is a kind of a poor picture, very far away and kind of pixelated, but it's called a malcoa, and the malcoas are a type of cuckoo. And in fact, the word malcoa comes from Sinhalese. This is an endemic to Sri Lanka, and the dominant ethnic group there are the Sinhalese. And so their name, malcoa, was adopted for this species. It means flower cuckoo. So cuckoos are a pretty big family of birds. We only have a few in this country, but in the tropics, you find lots of different types of cuckoos, and they're often very hard to see. They're often sort of diving into the shrubbery. So this was a good chance to get a look at them. When you're taking pictures of birds, you have sort of two reasons. One is to show a really beautiful bird, like the bee eater, wow, it's a beautiful bird. The other reason is to prove that you actually saw it. And so I thought that, Peter was always taking pictures, and he had the exact same camera that I did, which I took as sort of validation for my choice of camera. But, he didn't really care if it was a beautiful picture. He just wanted to have a record so that if anybody ever said, I don't think you saw that. I saw it. I got a photo of it, So even if it's a poor picture, it's still, evidence. So anyway, I thought it was kind of fun to see that. And this one too, I mean, the orange-breasted green pigeon, this is an absolutely stunning bird. And, people, we're all just sort of jaded about pigeons, I think, street rats or something. But yesterday, Audrey and I were at Point Reyes, and we saw banded pigeons out there, which is our local wild species of pigeons. They're very gregarious, big flocks of them. And it was really cool, wow, look, there's a pigeon. What do you mean? Pigeons, but there's a lot of beautiful pigeons. This is one of them. Okay, so lapwings, these are sort of shorebirds. They're related to plovers. If you know about plovers, we have them around here. But there are a couple of species there in Sri Lanka. The yellow wattled. The wattle is the part under the beak. I guess it's that yellow thing that you see on the side of his head there. And then we also had the red wattled. And this guy is pretty cool looking. You see him from the front. It looks like he's got this red mask over his eyes. So pretty amazing birds. Here comes another monitor. It's like being I'm on Komodo. We did go to Komodo many years ago. And, you really worry about getting attacked by a Komodo dragon. But these guys are not really considered dangerous. The locals are kind of, yeah, sure, there's a monitor there. Centipede, Indian tiger centipede is a really gorgeous animal. Now, this is an interesting place. We're in Yala National Park, which is probably the most visited, and very good reasons for there to be a lot of people there. Our guides were pretty good at staying away from the crowds. People go there because they want to see leopards, and there are leopards, and we actually did, I mean, one of those sightings where, did we really see it? You know, but there was something in the bushes there. Peter said it was a leopard. But the rule there, I thought it was kind of an interesting rule. From 12 to 2 every day, all the Jeeps have to stop. So you have these lunch places, and they have them figured out that it's safe to get out, and so people can have a walk around and have some lunch and stuff. And this is on the eastern side of the island. And here we put out our lunch, you know, and everybody's chowing down, so that's fine. And then here's this art installation. And so I was asking Ashoko, you know, what's the art installation? What does that mean? And you see the platform that the food's laid out on. That's the old foundation of a house when it was like a park ranger's headquarters. And what these sort of slide-looking things are is it's a artistic rendition of the tsunami that swept across there, that came all the way from where was it, Malaysia or Thailand or wherever it was the thing started, and you know, swept over Sri Lanka, and lots of people lost their lives. The park rangers, there was a group that were there, but fortunately it was a holiday, and so they were all off visiting their families when the tsunami hit, because nobody knew that it was coming. And the water swept across at the height that you see here. So you know, it's good to remind people about, you know, that shit happens, you know, you gotta watch out. Mongoose on the trail coming along. They have several species of mongoose there. And wild boars, protected, you know. One of the things, the Sinhalese are predominantly Buddhist, and they don't, I mean, they do eat meat, but I guess not all of them, but they're not really into hunting that much. And these animals are protected. So it's not that nobody ever hunts animals, but it isn't this thing that, you know, you have to constantly guard, because pretty much they recognize that it's good to have this natural part of the island. And I think, personally, I think that's where the ecotourism comes in, is that people come from far away and want to see natural stuff, and it's really good for the local economy. So, you know, let's not kill the animals. It's much better to have them on the hoof than on the plate. Purple heron, you know, it's a species to our great blue heron, but it's amazing how such a colorful and striking bird can hide in the reeds there. It's, you know, it's like, oh, where is he? Oh, there he is. He's pretty big. Stilt, this is black-winged stilt, which is quite closely related to the stilts that we have out here in the bay. And purple swamp hen, another species that's quite widespread, although I was reading that they've split it into about 7 different species. For a while, it was, you'd see the swamp hens all over Southeast Asia and Australia and a lot of places. But they've split it, you know, and so the number of species of birds keeps getting bigger and bigger because of the splits. Basically, based on the DNA studies, that's how they do it. And water buffalo. Now, water buffalo, these are wild, but I'm not sure if they're actually wild or feral. You know, a lot of times these animals escape, and they're viable in the wild, so they're able to to make it on their own. So I think these are probably feral populations. Gray langurs, you know, we did have a couple of species of primates, and langurs are leaf eaters, and so you find all around South Asia, Southeast Asia, different species, and this is the Sri Lankan one. And so here they are up in the tree, and
upside the head.
I'll give you a little video of, you know, they're hanging out and doing their monkey thing. You know, langurs are relatively easy to take compared to macaques. We'll get to macaques here in a minute. Pheasant-tailed jacana, quite an amazing bird. Again, a water bird. Thick knee. These are related to plovers also. And so now I wanted to get into the flying foxes. You're probably familiar with these.
Wow.
These are large bats, and not only are they large, but there's lots of them. So I mean, I just had to pick one branch. This whole tree was full of these flying foxes, and here's what they look like. They're actually pretty cute for bats, you know, and so we actually stayed in a place in Bali where the family had a pet bat, you know, and so they would go over and pet it and stuff, and you know, they said, oh yeah, you can stroke it if you want to. I said, well, you know, but anyway, these bats are getting a bad reputation right now because they do carry diseases, and there's a whole lot of stuff recently. I'm sure you've been reading some of this about all the viruses and whatnot, and you know, is this where the COVID came from and so on like that. And but there's a lot of different species. There's about 60 species of bats, of fruit bats. There's tons of, you know, bats and rats constitute over half of all mammalian species, you know, so this is a big bunch of animals. But anyway, there's a lot to do there, but I want to get onto some more of the birds. We're going to run out of time. Here's another a beater, the blue-tailed beater.
Oh.
What a gorgeous bird, huh? I mean, you know, you just can't hardly believe it. Well, this is supposedly the most beautiful, and the you know, everybody likes peacocks except when they squawk. You know, they're pretty loud, but it is an amazingly beautiful bird. And so we saw plenty of them there. Well, Yala National Park was the best place to see them, but you could see them elsewhere. But here's the peacock showing his finery to one of the storks. And we were kind of wondering, you know, what is he trying to come onto this stork? You know, doesn't he know what species he is? But we figured out that he's just being territorial. And so he doesn't really want this stork around. And so he's going to display here.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Yeah, got the message? Back off. It takes something to get a stork to back off. I mean, that stork is bigger and stronger, and if it came to a fight, I would bet on the stork. But anyway, the stork said, "Oh, okay," so he backs off. But look at this is the peacock from the rear. I never realized how amazing it is looking from. I mean, I always thought, you know, the front with the eye spots and everything, but this is really special.
Mm.
Some little pair of little lovey-doves there, and hawk eagle. And so here's the macaques. This is called a toque macaque. It's an endemic. And this little boy was just really fascinated, and the mother was like, well, you know, you don't want to get too close to them. Actually, what they're there for is they're trying to steal our lunch out of the Jeep. And they did. I mean, they are fast. But here's what it looks like. Pretty Looks innocent, right? Well, here's the mom with the baby clutched to her chest, and this, imagine the size of this tree. These great big fig trees, pretty amazing. And here's a guy showing off his stuff. So these are all toque macaques. They're omnivores as opposed to the langurs, which are mostly leaf eaters. Another type of stork, an adjutant stork. And then the elephants, the Asian elephant is a bit smaller than the African elephant, but it's still pretty darn big. And it's it lives 60 to 75 years. It can be up to 11 feet tall, and it can weigh 4,000 to 12,000 pounds. So this is a large animal, but they're a lot more easily trained than the African, particularly the male African elephant. You really can't tame it. But this mom was there with her young one, and then they came in and showed off for us a little bit. And when I was in Africa, we were always scared of the elephants and would get the heck out of there if the elephant came close. But our guides didn't seem too concerned about it. They're pretty easygoing and used to people, and so she's having a good yawn there. So it was really fun to see that there could be that big of an animal on this relatively small island. Roller. Some of you have seen our pictures of European rollers, or the lilac-breasted roller in Africa. This is the Indian version. One of the most beautiful families of birds. And some more of these water buffalo. Another lizard, green forest lizard. Look at how long the tail is on that guy. And here's another squirrel. And then this is in one of the Sri Lanka National Park, which is probably the best place. They have something like 24 species of endemic birds there. So that's really a lot. And these are the blue magpies. We have magpies, they're black and white. So this is pretty special to see. They put some rice in the crotch of this tree so that they can attract them, so people can come in and see them. But these guys are the kind of messy eaters. So there's other birds, of course, that'll get down below and clean up what's left over. So that's a blue magpie. Now this one, this is the ancestor of our domestic chicken, and I was really interested to see these guys. There's the Sri Lankan species and the Indian species. Probably the Indian one is the one that was domesticated, and now there's something like every year people go through something like 50 billion chickens. So this is the world's most successful bird, without a doubt. But we got this glimpse of him, and I thought, oh, I got to get a picture, Well, turned out that he wasn't shy at all. In fact, this guy was quite accommodating and wanted to come up and make friends with us. So here we are on the trail, and the rooster there is coming out. Turned out he had a bad leg, so he watch how he walks. You can see his right leg is a little funny. But I guess he gets handouts from the people walking. This is in a national park, and everybody's trying to see him, and nobody's trying to kill him. So it seems to work for him. But it's people say, it's just a chicken. Well, it's a pretty amazing bird. So and quite successful. Can't argue with 50 billion. And here's his lady. Didn't get a very good picture of her. Another thing called a spur fowl. And these guys are another endangered and endemic. Very hard to see. But again, they put out food for them, and so we were able to see them at the national park there. Bulbuls. I thought these guys were putting on quite a good show. Frogmouth, very bizarre bird. Little brown job, pretty cute though. And the penthes, some of you are into carnivorous plants. And the bulbul. And then finally, just a little bit on, I'm just going to finish up. We just happened on a wedding. That's always fun. So these were some pictures. Here's the bride and the bridesmaids. And we think maybe the mother of the bride, we don't actually know for sure. And another guy there. And here's a little girl at her doorway and some flowers. And maybe we end with a couple of butterfly shots. Very, very beautiful. So, okay, let's stop there and we'll see. Audrey, how do you want to do as far as questions or comments, or is it up to me to unmute everybody?
So you can unmute everybody and then they can ask questions or.
Okay. So unmute all.
On the
Okay.
participant
Yeah,
list.
I did it. Okay. So if anybody wants to raise your hand or ask a question or have anybody comments or anything like that.
I was interested in the names
We
that
have a lot of hands, Raj.
What's that, Audrey?
Can you see Janet and Toby up there in the left hand
Yeah.
side?
Could you call on them, Audrey? Because, you know.
Okay. Janet, can you hear me? You want to go ahead? Oh,
Yeah.
and it's Will also. Hi.
This is Will, yeah. Yeah, are there any tigers on the island?
No tigers, but there are leopards.
Were they there originally?
Not to my knowledge, but I could be wrong about that. I'd have to look it up, but I don't actually think so.
This is Will Dvorak asking his question.
Oh, hi, Will. Long time no see.
Yeah.
That's great.
Toby, you said had a comment?
Yes, I wanted to know, first of all, how long were you actually there in the country?
We were there for about 2 weeks.
And did you do any tenting, or were you always in hotels? You know, give us an idea of your personal experience in terms of how it was to be living there for 2 weeks.
Yeah. So we were riding around in this bus and we'd spend usually a couple of nights in one place. And we stayed in hotels, but we had to get up real early. So like that last stop at Sina Raja, you know, was so amazing. And we left early. We left before dawn and got back after dark. So really out in the bush.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Roger and
Yeah.
Audrey.
Yeah.
You're welcome. I didn't.
So, well, we're
No,
really.
I don't see any other hands. Am I missing someone?
Yeah. Looks like we're out of time though, Audrey, huh?
Okay. Well, then I think we should end it all. And, thank everyone for coming. It was really nice to see you all.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Roger.